So this week, we're going to cover a data-driven ranking of AI literature search engines. These are products that actually we've used for many years now. We got into this field, as I mentioned, because we were a research firm. I'll just tell you, in order. The first one we came across was maybe Elicit. That's this icon right here. Then we started to discover tools like Undermine, SciSpace, Consensus, and then this Google Scholar icon represents the new Scholar Labs. So these are really cool products. I call them search and summarization engines. And but we feel like there's a lot of noise around them. There is a lot of really great technical documentation about their architectures and how they work and whatnot. I think those things are well covered elsewhere. People like Aaron Tay publish awesome information about how these search engines work. Instead, we wanted to take a really practical approach, just super basic, simple, understandable, practical approach to specifically evaluating the quality of their search results, i.e., are these really leaps and bounds? Are these serious improvements to existing keyword search engines, or is it a little bit of noise, et cetera? By the way, spoiler alert, the answer is a little bit of both. The methodology we use, again, super simple, but I want to make it very clear and transparent. Same research question plugged in across these 5 AI search engines, and that is specifically, what are the GDP impacts of climate change? Super broad, but that's what we wanted to choose. We gathered, anonymized, and reconciled the top 10 results from each, which was quite a bit of work. So that involves, each of these tools displays different metadata in their kind of opening, results UI. And so we went through and scrubbed them. Some of them were missing metadata, honestly, but we sort of plugged those in. We made sure that the top 10 results for each had the same exact data fully populated. And that was, as you'll see, title, abstract, year, journal, and citation count. And we can literally, I can show you the Word document, share it with you if you'd like, that has the specific prompt, query we put into the next step. We took those 10 results. We used the same query to analyze those across 3 big AI chat engines, ChatGPT, Claude, and Gemini. And we anonymized the search engine as well. So the systems didn't know which was which. The questions were, which of these sets of results is the best? And then rank each by relevance, scholarly quality, sort of i.e. citation count and recency. And then we, just to be sure, we made a final judgment on our own, kind of a human review. So that was our methodology. We know there are some limitations. We're only pulling the top 10. It's not a rigorous system. To a large extent, we're relying on some of the LLM sort of different weighting systems. It's not a rigorous system for evaluating results. However, we did go through our own review. And then these models and search engines might work better with niche topics. We picked a broad one. We nonetheless believe the results contain a lot of information, especially given their consistency across our review and across these 3 chat engines reviews. Last thing I want to say here, just because I know a lot of people might have questions on this methodology and issues with it. Our rationale is that the more complexity you introduce, the easier these results are to game. And I hate to call out, one particular white paper, but this is a prominent white paper released back in 2024 by an unnamed AI search engine that's on our list. And it's a great product, to be clear. But the white paper always struck us as a little bit strange because how the results comparison was presented was that Google Scholar, only about 2 of 10 of the results on Google Scholar is relevant. Only 1 of 10 is highly relevant. We use Google Scholar every day, just like we use all of these other tools. Suffice to say, I was skeptical. Google Scholar is a pretty damn good search engine. Gets a lot of crap, especially before Scholar Labs was introduced, but it's a good search engine. And so when you dig into the methodology of this paper, you do find out that there's a lot of complexity. You can just so easily game the results when you have a complex methodology. So this is much more of a marketing document. And I'm sorry to say, it's a fairly widely cited marketing document. So that's why we wanted to keep it so simple. Sorry to harp on that point. Let's get into the ultimate results. Of the 5 I mentioned, and then I've got a slide in a second that covers all of them, Undermine is very clearly the best search engine, specifically by search results. Now, again, each of these products has other functionality for the most part, maybe with the exception of Scholar Labs. So Undermine has a long summary that's helpful, that summarizes the top 20 papers, key findings, something like that. Consensus has summaries, and then I think has some kind of reference management related, project management related capabilities. But purely in terms of search results, and I think this was no surprise to us, Undermine clearly has the best search technology. This is clearly a company that's produced a meaningful improvement, technological improvement in this space. Again, consensus is number 2. Scholar Labs, unsurprisingly, is number 3. Those results are very good as well. But I just think it's helpful to kind of sift through the noise with a very clear ranking here. Here is the full list of rankings. So again, 5 search engines on the left. Then you have the 3 chat engines on top, and then us humans. Interestingly enough, the 3 chat engines had a completely consistent rankings: 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We had only one difference, and that was that we felt illicit results were actually better than Scholar Labs. There are a number of reasons for why that might be the case in our ranking and not in some of the AI models. Probably comes down to the extent to which you're willing to accept working papers. Illicit produces a lot of working papers in their results. And so, but you know what? Those 3 are basically a tie. Undermine is the clear number 1. All of the products do a pretty good job, but Undermine's the clear number 1. SciSpace is, unfortunately, the clear number 5 here. And part of the reason for that, by the way, is SciSpace, search is only one small part of their platform. So they also do, like I said, they have a lot of summarization capabilities. A lot of it's focused on summaries, and then they do a lot of writing as well. If you want to get sort of a templated literature review output, you can do it through SciSpace. So those are the key rankings. Obviously, probably these 2 are the most important slides here. In case you're wondering, for a bit of a further breakdown, and then I can get into how you can actually jump into these results if you want. These are 3 pretty straightforward charts. Undermine wins, or at least ties for the top spot on all 3, which is, let's call it impact, citation count, average year, and relevance score. And in particular, I do feel like a lot of these models really struggle with weighting impact appropriately, i.e., a little bit hard to turn up seminal papers with some of these AI search engines. I will also mention that this significant difference in citation count, there is not one outlier driving this. So there, in these particular sets of results, the papers with the highest citation count had 2,000, and there were a couple of them. So it's not as if there's one 15,000 cited paper driving this. Average year, again, same thing. Tools like Elicit and SciSpace indeed struggled with this, especially on a topic like climate change, economic impacts of climate change. It's just getting papers from 2000 actually in 2007, not enormously important, other than maybe to grab some methodologies. You're doing a big review, something like that. And then relevance score, a little bit more subjective, but Undermine wins there as well. So wins on all 3 categories. It is clearly a very good search engine. And again, we were really only using it for super broad topic. Why Undermine is number 1 and SciSpace is number 5 very quickly. I already mentioned high citation count. Many different methodologies captured in the top 10 results. A lot of different quantitative estimates as well. Good recency and very good relevance. SciSpace is number 5, unfortunately, because of some very clear issues. One is that one of the top papers was retracted. I am struggling to remember if it was actually even labeled as retracted in the SciSpace results. I don't think so. Maybe that leads me to believe they're not querying. They've got their own database that's not maybe being regularly updated. But the point is, that's a retracted paper. It was in like the top 3, if I remember well. There are duplicate results. Number 1 and number 8 are the same exact results. And a lot of working papers, although I don't view that as such an enormous issue. And then a couple key, almost seminal papers, fairly recent. Those are those maybe 2,000 citation papers in that you found in Undermine. Those are missing from SciSpace. So I just think, maybe the takeaway here for a lot of folks is it seems to me a lot of the judgment when it comes to these tools comes down to how good the summary is, and how kind of eloquent it is. But the reality is, obviously, you've got to be doing the same thing we all did on Google Scholar forever, which was really pour through those results and see if those look valid and good as well. Otherwise, it's a cool summary. You can copy and paste it into places, but based on results, that could be improved. And then I think there's two final slides. This is just to really get at the, first of all, the key result. In case anyone's wondering, we've got a blog post going out that sort of highlights the key result here, but let's just, I think maybe I would describe it as saying there's a wide range as there is on any economic question. If you go into even a majorly studied empirical question in economics, there's going to be a massive range of results. So by 2060, anywhere between 0.5 and 4% hit to GDP as a result of climate change, measuring things like rising ocean levels and whatnot. I would say there are a lot of studies too, when you dig into the data, that argue there's really no statistically significant impact that you can find from historical data. Wouldn't surprise me, again, given the nature of econometrics. By 2100, more like 2 to 23%. So some studies find really significant differences. Now, main point here is just to highlight the importance of the search engine you're using. And in my opinion, highlight the importance of using a lot of search engines. You really shouldn't pick one. And this is obviously maybe especially relevant for students or something like that. But unfortunately, I feel like this field lends itself to picking one tool, and then you're either kind of accepting the summary and all of the data you get on those papers, or you've got to go through some kind of weird process to reconcile papers that are inherently not very interactive from different tools, but it's sort of necessary. Reason is, Elicit is a nice example that picks up computable general equilibrium models, more kind of bottom-up models, unit level, XYZ GDP impact of a 1 degree change, and then extrapolate that. Undermine, for any number of reasons, was grabbing the more evidence-based econometric studies. And so I think the point here isn't to say one's better than the other. It's more to just, again, highlight that if you're doing just a really quick review, maybe a scoping, whatever, top 10 results for Elicit, top 10 results for Undermine, my gosh, they look very, very different. You won't get much information from the results of just one of those. And my guess is that would be even when you jump to, the 20th paper, the 30th paper, et cetera. And then if I could do one final plug here, bringing it back to Mora, the idea behind Mora is actually that it's funny, we just transparently, we sort of started as a search engine a little bit, but then we pivoted significantly to being much more of a reference manager. So all of our LLM-based workflows are tacked onto a reference manager rather than a search engine. There are a number of reasons for that. One is we think it makes teamwork easier. You can do collaboration much easier. We also think it's unlikely that particularly folks doing large literature reviews will base their results on one platform. We know there has to be a system that brings together papers from many different search engines and databases. And so, again, just to show you the interface very quickly, I took the top 10 search results in Undermine and plugged it right into our Mora review. Here's what the reference manager looks like. And these are sort of different reviews. I'll jump into this one, and you can see the heart of the product is, as I said, the library. That's the reference manager. Here are the top 10 Undermine results. There are all sorts of things you can do with this, if you will. There's deduplication when you add papers from wherever you're bringing them in from, Google Scholar, PDF, PubMed, or Undermine. Deduplication, full text finder, and enrichments. I really want to harp on that. Here's what the library looks like. Okay, pretty straightforward. We've got some PDFs. We've got pretty much all the DOIs. You have some project management related tags, priority levels you can mark, assignments, etc. And then here is the paper enrichments feature. If you've got even 500 papers, you can jump into this. You can select maybe an AI field for each paper. Maybe I want to go to Crossref and grab the ISSN or something like that. And then I go ahead and run these enrichments, and here's how it shows up. Okay, so these are running for each paper. We won't always have the data. It's never perfect. There are working papers, et cetera, but wherever we can get the data, it's pumped out here. And we're constantly working on getting more and more data. So here's your study design. Here's the Crossref integration, the ISSN. So that is bringing it back to Mora. I think it's important, obviously that Mora's in effect sponsoring this. So let's bring it back to Mora. It should be helpful. And then I think that mostly covers it. And so, I want to thank everyone. This is our early audience. Again, just kind of unapologetically working hard to build an audience and do this every single week. And I hope it's valuable stuff. Next week, the next generation of reference management. I'd love to cover that. We've got a scholarly kitchen op-ed going out on the topic with one of Mendeley's earliest employees, actually. Week after that, which is the day after Christmas, but we're doing it regardless. Biggest retraction stories of 2025, kind of a fun end of year topic. And then finally, systematic reviews, January 2nd. That's a field that an area that we've learned a lot over the past, let's say, 6 months in this field. And we really feel like it's too contained to health sciences. And so we'd love to figure out what are the learnings from methods from systematic reviews that could be most helpful for other fields like mine, economics or bioengineering or whatever. So feel free to hit me up, john@more.io. Really, really appreciate, again, this early audience, everyone joining. Please share around, and thanks for the time. Have a great weekend.